The Canadian Aboriginal community, Attawapiskat First Nation, has declared a state of emergency after more than 100 suicide attempts have been logged since the fall, with almost 40 attempts between March and mid-April. This is the 5th state of emergency since 2006, and according to the Globe and Mail, Canada's 1.4 million Aboriginals have higher levels of poverty and a lower life expectancy than other Canadians. Now, Health Minister Jan Philpott has said that the suicide rate is 10 times higher than that of the general population of young people. Now, Nick, I mean, what do you think? Is this an issue with the government? I mean, what do you think is the cause of this? What do you think is at the root of all this?
I think the root goes very, 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 very far back in time, right? Since, these before the white man even settled in Canada. But, you and I were talking about this before we came on, and, we had a discussion basically more or less about, what could specifically be the cause of these high rates in such this, well, specifically in this one community, because the numbers are just ridiculous, and it goes far beyond anything that the government could or could not be responsible for. At least that's how I feel about it. Now, you see such high numbers. I mean, there has to be something going on specifically within this community. And I know, look, we talk about this a lot on the lip, how, a lot of governments, a lot of times, even in this country, they neglect the native population, whether it's Australia, whether it's, the US, it doesn't matter. It happens in a lot of places. But to sit here and kind of just say it is the government, or, the government's not doing anything there, these people are being marginalized, which they probably are. Right, but when you see such high numbers like this, I mean, it goes beyond that, I'm pretty sure. There's only so much money, there's only so many resources that the government can put in to these small communities, but I think if there's nothing for these people to do, I really think that, there's going to be higher rates of depression.
And that's one of the things, members of parliament said that these attempts on Friday, were the result of a growing despair within the area due to, neglect. And I mean, hey, it's an awful environment. In 2011, they saw severe housing shortages, forcing families to live in tents, unheated trailers, some even without access to running water and electricity. In 2013, they had infrastructure issues, which were blamed for flooding and sewage backups. Their living conditions, one of the chiefs pointed out that, there's severe, drug abuse, overcrowded housing. There's not adequate space, recreational space for young people to play. The mental piece in all this is, it's quite severe.
Right.
It's quite severe.
You see similar differences here in the U.S., similar differences. What I mean is, basically, if you take who is the most at risk in terms of suicide in the U.S., it'll be middle-aged white men. Now, you look at the suicide rates among Native Americans in this country, it's not middle-aged, it's 15 to 24. So there's always going to be these huge differences, and it's not surprising, right? The amount of alcoholism that we see going on in Native American communities here in the U.S., the way that they're marginalized. These things do exist, and they are problems that need to be addressed. Thankfully, Justin Trudeau's on the more liberal side of things. Yeah. He's kind of expected to be the guy to come in and do that. So that in itself is very good, that at least these kinds of terrible things, as bad as they are, this is what needs to happen apparently in 2016, even in the West, for these kind of things to make headlines, for there to be some sort of change.
And to that point regarding Justin Trudeau, that's one of the things that the article mentioned, was that he's pledged upwards of $8.4 billion to really address some of these Aboriginal issues that are happening in Canada. And this is a thing that you're just seeing all over the world. I mean, you see it in Australia, you see it in Canada, you see it with these Aboriginal communities, and the negative impact and the suicide rates and what these people are going through. It's really, really, really awful.
Those kinds of numbers in such a small community, there
2,000
must be
people.
A reason. Yeah, out of 2,000, how many?
2,000 people.
But what's the exact?
And they're saying that since the autumn, since the fall, upwards of 100 people have attempted suicide.
There has to be something bigger going on there.
No, to Canada, I mean, this is something that really, really, really needs to be looked at. What is going on there? What is truly going on there? It can't just be the government. There's got to be more to this story.